All right, quick one on the JB-12, right? So this is nice and clean. Somebody redone it. Looks nice. However, it works, but if you leave it on for a minute or two, I started smelling something like it's running hot. What could be running hot? Smelled like a tube cherry and overheating. So I took the cover off and checked the voltage, and that's the negative bias in standby. Then I'm going to key it down. That's the negative bias in transmit. It's doing the watts. It's swinging like crazy. But again, overheats in standby or when you're not keyed down. Unkeyed voltage, keyed down voltage. That's the opposite of what it should be. Before I show it, rhetorical question. Anybody got a guess why? Okay. Stop it if you don't want to know the answer. Here it is. This is set up by the schematic to be a receive booster. That RB stands for receive booster. Let me turn this thing off before it overheats. Okay. So to get past the FCC, they had to sell this little modulator RF amplifier, and they marketed and sold it as a receive booster. And they redid the wiring and the bias so it amplified to receive and not to transmit. When I was a kid, I had one like that that hadn't been, changed over. I was a kid, didn't know what I was doing then, and I stuck my fingers in it to see what was getting hot, and that's when I was introduced to Mr. Arc. Had a D104 in one hand and my finger poking with not touching in the other hand, and that thing arced and almost killed me as a kid. I was probably 8, 9 years old. But anyway, this one is, they changed around the wiring for the input and output, so it is an amplifier. But nobody changed around the wiring for the bias. If you look at this schematic, right there, it's saying the bias is supposed to be 43 volts when you transmit, and 30 volts when you receive, and that's just about what this is doing. It's a little bit higher because the line voltage is higher than it was in the 70s, when this amplifier was made. But that's what it's doing because this schematic is set up for a receive booster, and you actually had to mod the input and output to change it from receive to transmit, and then you had to mod the bias. You got to switch those two around. The bias, because you wanted to have the high bias, negative bias when you're receiving, because you don't want it to amplify when you're receiving, and that's what's causing the tube to cherry. And then you want the lower bias when you're transmitting. So hopefully all I got to do is switch that bias around, and this one will be ready to go. You can't always trust the schematics, because if somebody went by the schematic, they would have this amp set up as a receive booster, but they modified the transmit input and output, but didn't modify that. And probably if I wouldn't have had it on and been playing with it, and it's like, hey, it's doing the watts, and if I didn't have it on long enough to smell it, like, darn, what's getting hot? That shouldn't be. I wouldn't have caught that either, because it is working, just overheating. So should be able to just switch that, and this thing ought to be happy if the tube ain't killed by now. All right, that's it for this one. JB-12 receive booster. Bye.